on the board for the Maynard Family Association.
I'm Claire Neiman, the president of the Maynard Family Association.
Hi.
So we are coming today. We had an event planned for Saturday at the Fowler School for our annual fire truck wash. We understand that there is a water ban in place, so we are requesting or asking permission for a waiver for a limited amount of water that the kids will fill some buckets to wash a fire truck for a 2-hour period on Saturday.
Okay. I should point out that the watering ban is not our ban.
Yep,
It's
it's a
a
state
state-imposed ban. But their state regulations do allow for public safety considerations. And we think this one gets covered by that because the trucks are going to get washed anyways in order to maintain the public safety equipment in good operating condition. So, in my mind, I think you're good. Everybody else, is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I participated in years past. It's fill like 10 buckets and that's about it.
Yeah.
Not even hosing down the
That's the
vehicles.
lower part of the truck.
But it's
look
very
at it
clean.
The wheels are very clean.
Yeah. So I think that's fine, and we'll let the school officially know that it's A-okay.
Okay, so I don't need to do anything, give anything to the school. That'll be taken care of.
My only suggestion would be to do your best to make sure that the water's not running the whole time.
Yes.
Just fill up the buckets.
Yep. In the past, we have had a sprinkler. We won't do that. We will
Yeah.
just fill the buckets and let
As
the
a matter of
kids-
fact, I don't think that's a violation if you're filling up a bucket and taking the bucket elsewhere, but I don't know.
we won't. Yeah, we won't have running water.
I don't know the
We'll get our legal team on it, but
All
I
right.
think we're covered. Just don't
We'll
invite
get you
the
an answer in
governor.
like 3 months.
have fun as always.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So Becky, you going to take care of the communication to the school?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments this evening?
Before we move on, Bill, can I, if I may?
Certainly.
So, the following letter was given to me by Selectman Capello, and she asked that I read it into the record. It's addressed to Michelle Sokolowski, the town clerk, so I'll read it as such. Dear Michelle, the current atmosphere on the Board of Selectmen has deteriorated to a point where diverse ideas and opinions are no longer welcome and are, in fact, discouraged by the use of such tactics as bullying and intimidation. Given the tone and unnecessarily disrespectful behavior I was subjected to at the recent July 8th Board of Selectmen meeting, I hereby resign my position as Selectman. Please notify the Board of Selectmen that the effective date of my resignation is July 22nd. So she told me that she'll deliver a signed copy of this to the town clerk, but I'm giving it to you for the record since it was brought into the record.
All right. Wow, that's very too bad. I guess we'll talk at the end during new old business about the logistics of another election. Okay. Our next agenda item is acceptance of minutes, although I'm not quite sure they're ready for prime time, so.
Yeah, and if I could briefly, Bill, so growing into the new role as clerk, even though I served at it as 3 times, one would offer that Bill was kind enough to, and I think he was this was happening before. Anyways, I have to provide some comments back. I have not done so, and I think that it's probably premature to move to accept these minutes. And so what I'll do is I'll respond back to your comments, and I mean, presumably if individual members of the board have comments, they can provide them, but I just haven't fulfilled my duty as clerk in that regards for these minutes.
Yeah, I think it has to do with one involved a rather complex hearing.
Yeah, no, and that's fine. I
Don't
don't.
get that one right. That's
Fair enough.
All right, very good. The next item is correspondence. And we have a motion to accept correspondence items A through N on the agenda of July 22.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor? The vote is 4-0 to accept the correspondence.
Chairman, may I
Yes.
ask a question?
Okay, Vic?
Waltham Street certified mail. What is that related to?
We're still trying to figure that out. I wish we could tell you. It's in the packet, right?
Yeah.
It
The
is.
posted
It
packet?
is.
I mean, I can speak generally if you like, but as far as the board taking any
Yeah,
it's probably premature.
yeah, that's a very complex issue, and we're still trying to figure out exactly the
What are you trying to figure out? That's what I'm asking.
history and next steps, mostly. But we really can't give you a definitive response on that one. Sorry.
It's not a very satisfactory answer.
Well, I mean, you're welcome to read in the packet everything we read, but it appears to be a complex issue, and
And
we're gonna try to figure it out.
I mean, I guess my only offering, Bill, is that, we probably consider it for future agenda items so we can actually have some substantive discussion.
Yep. The next issue is the consent agenda. We have a request for appointment to the Board of Assessors by Steve Pomfret. We have a request for a Historic Commission alternate member appointment for Peg Brown. And we have license requests for Hobson's Homemade doing business as Serendipity Cafe for a common victualler and a entertainment license.
And those are actually presumably transfers from,
Yes.
It's
due
a
to
change of
due to a
management.
recent sale, they're transferring those, and they also have a note, if anybody cares, that they're no longer going to have a bring your own
That was exactly my
Booze.
question. Okay.
service in the new ownership.
Oh.
So they're handing back that license.
Okay.
We have a motion on the consent agenda.
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? All in favor? Unanimous approval of the consent agenda.
Good luck. Or continued good luck.
All right, next item is board opening interviews. And we were gonna have interviews about the cultural council, but the applicant has perhaps temporarily withdrawn his letter of interest due to a business conflict at the moment. He's doing paid work for the town, so. We won't be talking about cultural council, but we have two candidates for the Council on Aging, and are the candidates here, John Edson and Diane Wazik? Who wants to go first? Diane, please come up. If you could state your name for the record and then give us a very brief summary of your interest in the Council on Aging.
My name is Diane Wasick, and I live with the seniors. I take care of them, and I know what they want, and I'm here to do whatever I can for them. I want to see them get more activities.
Very good. All right, succinct. Do we have any questions from the board?
Can I make try to make a succinct comment?
You may.
Thank you.
Very much.
I say thank you, too. I have a question for you. Can you talk about what you do? Do you work professionally with seniors?
No, I live with them.
Oh, okay.
I live at Concord Street Circle in
Okay.
Maynard, and I live with them. I take care of them.
Oh, thank you.
Sponsors luncheons.
Yeah.
Very good, very nice. I know that I had been speaking with Andrew, and he spoke very highly of your credentials, so welcome aboard, and we're
Thank you.
happy to have you, and looking to revitalize that committee, so thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to put you on the spot. You said you were interested in more activity. Do you have an example or two?
Well, like bingo, exercise class, things like that they like.
Good. Good.
You know, luncheons.
All right, very good. We have a motion from the board?
Oh,
Do.
go ahead.
Sorry, David.
Go
I
ahead.
stole the appointment slip from Bill. I move to appoint Diane Wazik to 3C Concord Street Circle to the Council on Aging with a term expiring June 30th, 2016.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we already sign an appointment slip?
You'll have to get sworn in, but Becky will help you with all that.
All right, next up, Mr. Edson.
Thank you, Diane.
thank you for your interest.
Thank you.
Just state your name for the record and give
John.
a brief explanation.
Edson, and very briefly, I've been a nurse for the past 40 years. I have been a nurse executive for about 35 years, involved in all aspects of project development and administration. I have, in the past 5 years, I have been responsible for developing 2 palliative care programs at 2 major medical centers in the Metro West area. Last October, I retired as a nurse, and I am now a realtor with Caldwell Banker in Concord. And I just earned my specialty certification in senior real estate housing, which means that I have taken a specialty course in terms of the needs, the special needs that seniors bring to the real estate market. We have an increasingly growing aging population, and their needs need to be met. I have worked extensively in nursing homes and in the community, talking to seniors about their options, both through chronic illness and in terms of housing. And I would like the opportunity to serve on the Council on Aging and bring some of my knowledge to the council and work with seniors that I have a passion about. My wife is a geriatric nurse practitioner. She works in several local nursing homes, and we're just very passionate about working with the elderly.
That's wonderful. Let me ask you one question. What are your thoughts on how well the housing stock in Maynard is meeting the needs of the seniors and the aging population?
I don't see too much of it. And I think that there could be more, a lot more that could be done. And senior housing takes into account a lot of different things. A lot of it is just accessibility, safety, size of rooms, safety, things like grab bars in the bathroom, trying to prevent falls, the ability to call for emergency assistance if someone falls. I'm familiar with some of the housing here in Maynard because I've had clients in the area. But I don't see as much as in some of the other towns.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Other than saying I'm excited to have you join the Council on Aging. As I mentioned earlier, we're looking to revitalize and having some new ideas and new thoughts, and especially having the background with geriatric services. I think you'll be a wonderful addition to the board. So good luck.
Thank you.
We have a motion.
Can I be equally succinct?
Yes.
Thank you. You should have more verbose. I move to appoint John R. Edson of 2 Bryan Way to the Council on Aging with a term expiring June 30th, 2016.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? No. All in favor? Unanimous, 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your confidence.
So I guess it actually brings us up to 5, right? If I'm correct? It brings us up to 5.
Officially, we have 9, but we are expecting some members to resign because of health reasons.
Does this, okay, does this bring, I mean, I'm sorry, it's a bit of a distraction, but does this bring us up to potentially like a functional board?
Yes.
Because I know there's been troubles in the past because of a variety of issues with quorum and that sort of thing.
We expect to have a quorum at our next meeting, which is being scheduled for the last day of the month.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is cemetery deeds. We have a couple of them.
Want me to do them?
The first one is a transfer of ownership, and the second one is a new deed, and actually a third one's a transfer of ownership. And Brendan has volunteered to do all 3.
Well, since I was brief before, I guess I can be verbose now. I move to approve deed number 39 dated July 22nd, or cemetery deed number 39 dated July 22nd, 2014.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second.
Yeah, I just have a question on these, not that I'm opposed to the transfer, but have we established where we are relative to these cemetery deeds and how they're being dealt with as far as if people apply, yet they're not deathly ill or having already deceased, are they going forward at this point or not? What's the scoop?
They're following the current policy that's in place. The plan is to have, I believe, by our second meeting in August, to actually have recommendations for a new policy
Okay.
coming upon after the project that's been going underway for the cemetery mapping and
Yeah.
GIS. So as of now, they're still following the current
So
policy.
the person who asks for the plot has to be either previously deceased or basically
Right.
ready to go, lack of a better phrase,
Yes.
soon. Okay.
Okay, and we have 2 transfers and 1 new, so that's a timely need for the new one.
Yes.
And are you willing to entertain some more motions? Or are we still?
We haven't done the vote on
Sorry.
cemetery deed 39. All in favor? Okay, unanimous approval of cemetery deed 39.
I move to approve cemetery deed number 2014 dated July 8th, 2014.
We have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous approval of license, or deed 2014.
I move to approve cemetery deed 2015 dated July 8th, 2014.
We have a second to the motion?
Second. I don't want to battle Jason all night long for those seconds.
Well, he'll get his chance. So, any further discussion on the motion? Okay, vote all in favor? That's a little premature, but a vote was indeed all in favor for cemetery deed 2015.
Nice.
All right. Next item is item number 9. Liquor license discussion. It's tagged at 7:30, but it's not really a hearing or anything. Kevin, you want to give us background?
You, Nick? Okay. Good, thanks. So this is a follow-up to the letter that was sent to the owners of Quran Restaurant Group, known as Peyton's. A letter was sent to them in the beginning of June with reference to the fact that their license, the establishment had been closed and the license had been dormant, and looking for some follow-up on what they're looking for, their plans, direction on where they foresee the license going and the working of that. They did follow up with a return letter and noted that they were seeking potential buyers, who particularly referenced the 129 Parker Street project. And at this point, we've asked them to come before the board to provide an update on the status of the license.
Okay. You're on.
Yeah. I'm Nicholas Leo from Karen Restaurant Group. So basically, we've been kind of going back and forth with Capital on transferring the license there. We've looked into possibly relocating or actually just basically selling the license to them. So that's where we're at right now. We've been negotiating, and we hope to have an agreement probably in the next few days. I think we're getting kind of close. So once that, then we would obviously start the transfer process. For what do we have to do for that?
All right. I guess my first question to you is, do you have a plan B? Because at a recent license transfer hearing, it was denied for that property because, among other things, there is no plan submitted yet for that property.
Yeah.
Just to make you aware of that.
We do have other alternatives, but obviously that is our plan A. Was it denied based on just the plan, or?
Well, among the other things in the decision was the fact that, I mean, there is no plan for the property. Right now, the development is an idea.
Yeah.
And we're not allowed, under our licensing regulations, to transfer licenses unless there's a physical establishment or a planned establishment. You know, have to know the details of it.
Saying,
Now, they may put in an application soon, but
yeah,
there is currently none.
say an application as like in a building permit application or like the actual approved project or?
No, more
how
like
does it
a,
work?
a site plan development submittal.
Yeah,
But, I mean, it's just something you should be aware of, and
okay.
if you want, we could provide you with a copy of the decision on that last
Yeah,
application.
that would be helpful,
Well,
definitely.
if I may briefly, Bill, and I don't want to belabor the point, because I know there's some actual uncertainty about this, right? But, so, I almost hesitate, but I'll bring it up anyways, which is in regards to the state of the 2009 site plan approval, which is currently in debate, right? As far as its state, whether or not it's a valid site plan or whether or not it's invalid and all the agreements around it, but my only point was, is you said there was no plan. Well, in some cases, there is a plan, we're just a little bit not certain of the state of that plan.
Well, actually, that's a good point, because they have contested the decision, so maybe we should get you a copy of their statement of appeal, just so you understand what's
Yeah,
going on.
no, I know there
You can also
is.
get
It
a
affects
copy
your
of the decision,
decisions.
too.
I believe they were gonna be talking to the ABCC to see what their point of view is or something.
But, I mean, you have to make some decisions, so best you're
Yep.
as educated as possible.
Definitely. Yeah, no, a copy of the decision would be
We can get you.
very helpful.
Any other questions or queries from the board?
Just, I guess was there, and I'm not asking you to necessarily go through all of it, there is no intention necessarily resuming operations at that location?
We've looked into it. I mean, it's something we are considering. I mean, I'm not ruling anything out at this point,
Fair
until
enough.
something is done. It's just a question of whether we want to do it or, have to find obviously the right site and the right deal. I mean, I want to make sure it's financially feasible and,
Sure.
operationally, whatever it is we need to do, we can get done. The last thing I want to do is do something that is going to end up, not being successful. So,
Of course.
I mean, definitely don't want to go down that road, so I would consider anything. I
Fair
guess,
enough.
If that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
All right. You have any other questions of us?
So what's the timeline, I guess, on whatever you guys are there figuring out, or the ABCC, I guess, on that stuff?
So presumably they have
Or
some
anything.
time that they should act in, but if I may, I mean, so you have a right to submit an application for a license transfer.
Yeah.
Based on Selectman Crenshaw's comments, and a little brief history, he's offering a cautionary note, which is why getting copies of available materials is a good thing. As far as how long we can expect before the ABCC renders a decision, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I presume they have a period that they're supposed to respond in, but I can't tell you what that is. You'd have to contact the ABCC.
Is there anything that would be different about my application from that application? Or would it basically be
No,
facing the same
And the
circumstances?
facts seem to be consistent, but,
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I'm just saying that it's probably not going to be figured out in a week.
Yeah.
By the ABCC.
Right. So
That's a fair statement.
you may want to revisit your calendar.
Okay. Fair enough.
We have a question from the
Make
audience?
a couple of comments if I may. This restaurant is below where I'm located on Powder Mill Road. And I don't know what the deal was with the property owner and so forth, as far as asking the gentleman to leave. I don't know whether he got his lease bought up or what have you, but I don't believe that a pocket license for anyone is a benefit to the town. Because as I understand the liquor laws, and I'm not an attorney, the license is issued to a particular geographic location, stating number of rooms and all that stuff in the application. Now, he doesn't have any of that, and there is another license in the same category in town. And I would much rather see that, hopefully, that he would open up somewhere else in town, because if he's talking about 129 Parker Street, I just had a brief discussion with the town planner, and it seems that 129 Parker Street has notified the town planner that they have withdrawn their definitive subdivision approval plan, which means that, I don't know, what's going on up there, but it sounds to me like it's the dog chasing his tail or something. But I don't believe that a license that's not producing revenue in a way of tax revenue for the town is a benefit to us. And I think the gentleman could probably sell it. I don't know. But how long is a licensee able to keep a license if he doesn't conform to what the general laws, the liquor laws say? Thank you.
Yep. And, I mean, that does touch on the letter we sent you earlier about, the pocket license, which is an inactive license, and our expectation that by standard renewal time will be some activity for that license. But I think many people would agree with Vic's opinion that we'd love to see it in action as soon as possible.
Yep. Oh, we'd like to see that as well.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
So, if I may, and I'm sorry, it's somewhat tangentially related to this conversation, if you will. When we consider what is reasonable policy, I'd be interested in a discussion. And it doesn't have to be done tonight. In regards to if it was an active license and someone wanted to sell it, like how does an establishment, how does a development like 129 get a license, right? Because, and again, I'm not here to really harp on 129, but if you need a license in order to get someone to sign a lease, in order to have the commitment that you're willing to submit a plan, I'd like to talk through some of those logistics about how one could feasibly get a license. Because even if there were more licenses available, now, if we have infinite licenses, and I'm being somewhat facetious, but if we have more licenses available, it perhaps simplifies the conversation. But in the case of limited licenses, how does one even facilitate a license transfer to a project like that? It doesn't have to be Parker Street, but it could be somewhere else that they need the license before someone's willing to sign a lease, and which is before they would willing to invest the tens of thousands of dollars to submit a plan and so on and so forth.
Wouldn't you think somebody would not want to sign a lease until they knew that there was a building?
No, until they knew that there was a license.
I mean, your point's interesting, and that's one of the reasons why we're advocating strongly for the lifting of quotas.
Oh, sure. And again,
And
this
that would
becomes
be-
irrelevant
That
at
would be
that
the
point.
best thing possible, but, I mean, to your point, I wonder if it's our local licensing regulations that are the constraint on that flexibility.
It's a good
And
question.
that's gonna take a little investigation to determine.
Wasn't expecting an answer tonight, but it made me, I'd like to have that conversation at some point in the future.
So wish we could give you more definitive guidance.
We're in the
It's-
same boat.
Navigating the liquor license rules and the ABCC
Yeah.
is a tough thing. But we hope, just like you do, that something can happen as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I just want the board to know, we're doing the most due diligence we can. We don't want to, have it sitting around. We'd like to get answers to you guys as soon as we can, and hopefully get that license, moving to a use, whether it's us or whether it's somebody else, as soon as possible.
One thing to be aware of is that we renew liquor licenses, as you are aware,
Yeah.
annually. And speaking for myself, I would not be, especially in a situation where a license has gone unused for an extended period of time,
Yep.
I would be unlikely to vote in favor of approval of renewal of a license if it were not actively being used. And there was more, well, I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
I think that's about it for us.
All right,
Yes.
and we'll get you that information we referenced.
Yeah, to
and,
get those decisions. How do we get it? Email it or?
We can scan an email. Have you provided an email? We have an
Yeah,
email address.
Stephanie has
Yeah.
it.
Okay. We'll get that out to you tomorrow.
Okay. Excellent.
Great. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Uh,
Okay. Will do. Thanks.
Next up is the PEG access request. Kevin, you want to introduce
Yes.
the topic?
Sure, this is the annual request from the superintendent of schools, Dr. Girardi. The letter you have is dated May 29th. We typically bring it up before the agenda sometime in the first few months of the fiscal year. As they get further along in the budget and fiscal year, it becomes more of a crisis, but it was a good ample time to bring it before the board tonight. One thing that you'll notice differently that in prior years' requests is we've asked them to calculate out the costs of the employees that they have, which is a full-time director at WAVM and some part-time paraprofessionals, 2 to be exact. The difference between this year's letter, in addition to calculating the FY15 salary increases, is it provides a reimbursement for healthcare costs to be charged against the PEG access funds. So the total request is total is 107, 165, 84 that they're respectfully requesting for FY15 PEG funds to support the program activities at WAVM.
Kevin, in the past, are you done with that?
Yes.
Okay, in the past, have we financed through PEG the full amount of the director, healthcare costs, everything?
Everything, yes.
Okay, for some reason, I thought that we had done half or...
No, the last year's was somewhere around 86, 87,000. The only piece we haven't done, which we've asked them to change in this year's request, was
tell
for
you.
the true cost of
Pretty
that
far in.
employee, which is,
Including the health
which includes
insurance.
the health insurance. but
Okay.
We have
And
funded
that's,
it.
Oh, I
that's
got it.
an acceptable use of PEG access funds
Yes.
for the health insurance aspect?
Oh.
Okay.
95.
Yes.
And what is the, if you know, the balance of PEG access funds currently?
What is it?
So like 200K recurring?
Yeah, between the two, it's around 900,000.
How much?
900,000.
900?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the split between Verizon and Comcast.
Yeah, I'm just curious what the, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted, but what's the annual revenue, or is it like lump sums every 5 years during contract
Yeah, one
renewals?
was a lump sum for a 5-year, the other was 50,000 a year for 5 years, right? Is that what it was? Yeah.
Okay, and
We
based,
get that quarterly, yeah.
okay, and based on the healthcare cost comment, this is higher by last year by what, about 20,000 or so?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, but yeah, I think the last year's was around 87. Of course, whatever they receive for salary, wage increases. And then the healthcare cost is relatively high, even though it is one person. It's because of the actual plan that this particular individual has. It's a
I
higher-
think the confusion that I have is that I don't think we've seen it itemized like this in the past. I think it's always
Correct.
been just one number that came in, and I
Yeah,
assumed that
that's
that was...
correct. Yeah, we always had to
Okay.
speculate and request, what is this number covering?
Yep.
So we've asked them to break it down more, in addition to adding in the healthcare, because they always, they lumped, you're right, it was a solid number request of 87,000 and didn't break it out.
Yeah, all right.
So it's a little more itemized. Again, the healthcare cost increases because of the PPO plan, so what that is for one individual.
Great. I'll make a motion. The chair will...
Do we have a motion?
I will move that we approve $107,165.84 of FY15 PEG funds to support the programming at WAVM.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Glad to see my $25 is going to a good cause.
That's right. That and enables you to film this evening's meeting.
I don't
right.
pay into that because I get satellite.
Huh, well, I'm going to keep the camera aimed at you the whole night then. All right, next item. Once again, we're going to Kevin for this one. License to enter and use town-owned land for dog park.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is the long-awaited Maydog off-leash dog park agreement. Been working closely for several months since the development of the solar array project with Washington Gas. Part of the agreement, as you know, was to build an off-leash dog park to certain specifications, and we've done that. We've had some roadblocks along the way, which you're aware of, with regards to the placement of utility poles and some additional fencing that was needed for safety reasons. And we're at a point now where been able to deal with the board of directors with Maydog and town council review and come to an agreement. I do see Rob Weswick, who's the president of Maydog, is here this evening. I don't know if he wants to add anything to that, but the board has the agreement before them. I think as you saw an earlier draft of the agreement, there was some areas that were still in concern with regards, particularly with regards to insurance policies, rules and park rules and regulations, how that was going to be governed. What I will say is certainly this is our first whack at a dog park. I think there's some expectations that are expected through this agreement, of which Maydog is expected to do, and has always been a concern of mine. What added services or what resources of the town would actually be drained upon under such a dog park. And I feel comfortable with Maydog's plan. I feel comfortable with the agreement, and certainly it allows us to revisit for future years during renewal time if there are concerns that are found throughout the year. So I don't know if you want to have Rob come up.
Very good. Yeah, please, come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Name's Rob Weswick. I'm the president of Maydog, the Maynard Dog Owners Group, which we've been trying to get the off-leash recreation area since 2008. It's been a long discussion with this. I think the agreement that we've come up with the town, specifically the town administrator and town council, addressed all those concerns. I had put it up to our board for vote. We approved it. I have signed the copy of it. So now we're just waiting for board approval, and then we'll open it within a few weeks, is our plan.
Very good. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board?
My only comment would be, I was actually the chairman of the board at the time when this whole process started.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my concerns that I had, and I was vocal about at the time, was the liability issues, which I'm comfortable, having read the agreement, have been addressed appropriately. Kevin actually echoed my other concerns, is the drains on on town services, specifically if somebody is on a butter, say, across the street or up on the hill or whatever, and they hear a bunch of dogs barking. My inclination is they're not going to call Maydog, they're going to call the police.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a drain on town services. And the same thing for if anything's going on there, they're not going to call Maydog. Hopefully it's not a big burden on them, and I'm confident that it will not be. The other concern I have is historic. Right now you've got strong leadership, obviously, there. You've got a strong group. As we move along, what happens if the group starts to fall apart, and you've got this, who's going to how do we manage control over who has leadership roles and everything else, and et cetera? Those are my concerns, and I think I've been pretty consistent over the last 6 years with them.
And all I can address on that point is that the agreement is a year-to-year And if we don't have the leadership there, the town of Maynard doesn't reapprove the license, and we're no worse off than we were before we started.
Are we January to January with it, or how is the year going to be?
This first one is until December 1st of this calendar year.
Okay, so it's actually pretty good, because you got like a
Yes, we're going to shut down for the
trial.
winter, right.
Yeah.
And I think that's going forward until we get more parking or snow removal in that area. Discussions with Mr. Sweet was that we would follow the parking ban. So when the streets were closed for parking, we would close the park for the season.
Oh, that's a good calendar to follow.
Okay.
Okay, I have no other comments. Good luck.
Any other questions, comments? All right, in my agenda notes, I have a suggested motion that I'll make. And I motion to approve agreement between the town and the Maynard Dog Owners Group Incorporated, AKA Maydog, for the purpose of a license to enter and use town-owned land for dog park of the premises known as land appurtenant to former Waltham Street landfill. The term of this license shall commence on July 23, 2014, and shall expire on December 1st, 2014. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Brendan gets it.
No, I was going to say, there's no way I could have done that one off the cuff, so thank you.
I'm actually not sure who seconded.
Brendan seconded.
All right. We're in agreement that Brendan got the second on that one. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Congratulations.
Thank
I
you
know
very
it's
much.
been a long time
6
in the
years,
making.
piece of cake.
Thank you very much.
So, Rob, real quick, we'll give you a copy of the original when it's attested to the town clerk. And then if you can just get me the COI. I've updated the plan, so it's no longer a draft, it's a final version. So that's in that agreement. All right?
Very good.
Thanks. All right.
Good luck with it.
Thank you.
Just give us a moment to finish signing that.
We just had 3 copies.
Yes.
Two signature copies, right? Or 3 signature copies?
Yeah, you know something? We're not signing it in the same order, so shame on me. I should have let you go first. But
I think there's 3.
It's fine. The lawyers will work it all out.
Really? Come on.
I'd like to know if they have to pick up the leavings.
They
The
do.
leavings? That's a good way.
Yes.
That's part of the agreement.
This agreement has a full set of
leaving collection
user
policy.
instructions and requirements.
Park rules.
Just all I'd ask.
All walls.
Doesn't say where they take them to.
Yeah.
I want the pooper scooper.
You leave Cujo at home.
Good luck.
Thank you.
It's only one signature page, right?
Please.
Yeah, I think
Correct.
that's one. The rest
Yeah.
are exhibits.
All right.
Yeah, one on each, in each packet.
Signature page, yeah.
Yeah.
So our next agenda topic is the liaison assignments for the board members to our various committees and boards. And I asked earlier this week for people to come with thoughts about how to make that communication more effective. And I'll start off with just a thought on my desire that we figure out a good way to at least communicate with our committees to find out their goals and objectives and their needs and give an understanding of just how much work they do for the town. Last year as liaison to several committees, I failed miserably in my duties and probably didn't even communicate with a couple. So I'm hoping the other members of the board have some thoughts on how to make this as effective as possible.
I may have thoughts, but I can't necessarily claim any more success than you just did. You know, in regards to formally communicating with those boards and committees that I was, tasked with liaising with. I think one of the, challenges we have is that, where there's certainly the notion of meeting fatigue, right? We go to the Board of Selectmen meetings and may voluntarily go to other meetings related to town business and what have you. And while one easy way, and I did do it with one board I was liaison to as the Conservation Commission, but even that was like 2 years ago. Right, so you could say, well, I should go to one, each of my assigned committees meetings once a quarter, once a semester or whatever. That's one way to do it, and to get on their agenda to say, hi. I mean, I'm being somewhat facetious to make the point. Hi, I'm Brendan. I'm your liaison with the Board of Selectmen. I'd like to discuss with you your goals and how we can better the relationship and better the communication. Because I think ultimately that's one that we can all agree upon. Perhaps that could benefit us. Another notion that we've discussed over the years is potentially inviting boards to Selectmen meetings. Well, that's fine. That's more of a kind of a pull. Like here, come to our meetings, which certainly we can do, but they have meeting fatigue as well, and I think there needs to be more of a push in regards to building these relationships. And I think when the liaison positions were first identified a couple of years ago, notionally that's what we were trying to do, but as far as exactly how you do it, other than reaching out to each chair, other than going to meetings, depending on the board or committee, if I may. Like the Conservation Commission has both regulatory duties as well as some sort of proactive planning duties with, active management of the wetlands bylaw and what have you, right? So that's one that they have an ongoing thing that one could, and I could do a better job of connecting with them. But like the ZBA is an as-needed committee, right? They're not as much. And I'm not begrudging their role, but they are merely a quasi-judicial board that responds to applications. They don't necessarily set policy or advocate policy. That's more the role of the planning board in the case of zoning. So I guess it somewhat depends on the board.
Okay.
Not a lot of focus to that rambling, but I at least wanted to throw something out there.
I would point out that I think my colleagues have sold themselves a little short regarding some of their roles relative to, for lack of a better phrase, liaison and subcommittees, because Bill, for one, participated with the Golf Course Reuse Committee, and I know you attended meetings, and I know you reported back what was going on. Brendan obviously participated quite lustily with and reported back with the, well, Brendan doesn't like that word.
I'm going to look that one up if that's okay.
With the Charter Review Committee. I was involved with the school building committee. So I think each one of us certainly put in our time with our particular one. But Brendan makes the point about meeting fatigue, where that's where the problem comes in, when then you're going to those meetings on a regular basis, and then, oh, by the way, and it's true for the professionals, it's true for all of our volunteers. So having said all of that, I think what we at least need to do is have a full understanding of who our leadership team is, so we know who the chairman of all of these committees are. I believe there's a value in bringing at least the chairman of each committee in to speak to us over the course of a year to tell us what's going on in their particular area and where we can be of help to them. And I would actually enjoy doing that again. I know we did it one year. Not everybody came in. Of course, you run into scheduling problems with them that becomes an issue. But 10 minutes with a chairman of a committee that can tell you a lot of what might be going on. I think also, again, just sorting to the theme of we sell ourselves short, many of us attend a lot of, several finance committee meetings over the course of the year. And although one of us may be the liaison, all of us are there. So at one time or another. So I think having a liaison to the board is good. I think we should identify ourselves to the chair. I don't know if there's a requirement on our part to feel required to go with any regularity to those meetings. It's really just to let them know we're there. We are their contact person if they want or need something from the Board of Selectmen. And, we go that way. It's a small town. We can find each other. And although it was said to me at one point by our good friend Sally Bubier that these boards and committees really appreciate when a member of the Board of Selectmen walks in and sits down and listens to a meeting when it's not on a controversial topic, and realizes that we do indeed care about what's going on in our community. But and I take those words to heart. I think that is true, but it's just, where do you find the time and whatever. But those are my thoughts.
You've inspired a little idea to me in that I think I would do the initial communication with the chair of the committee and find out if they had interest in coming before the board to present their thoughts and needs. And if that was a little onerous for them, then I would go to their committee so they could tell me their story, and then I could bring it back to the board. Just try to make it as easy as possible on them.
Well, so I think that's fair in this. Well, I don't necessarily think it's fair if you're suggesting that if we have 15 committees that we appoint and 7 of the chairs just can't make it for scheduling or whatever reason, that you're going to be responsible for going to all 7 meetings. I think that's putting an undue burden on you, unless that's what you're volunteering to do.
Well, I was going to pick the right committee.
Okay, that's fine, but there are those other committees that,
But your point about zoning is good, because, they have very limited needs or need to interact even.
Well, in the case of the ZBA, but the planning board's a whole different kettle of fish, right?
It is. Jason, Mr. Ex-Planning Board.
I can only say what my goal is.
Okay.
My goal is to get to, it's going to sound not the way I want it to, but as many meetings of our committees and boards, purely for my own education as a new member of this board. And I think I would agree with the statement you made you carried forward from Sally, that I think the boards, the department heads, I think the various people appreciate that we take an interest, and so that's kind of my thought on it. I'm not sure how to break that up, or.
So if I could, so I think what it comes down to is that, I'm taking what David said, what Jason said, what you said, Bill. We come up with a list of committees, right? And again, I just don't have it in my head. I know we have that information, right? So we identify a list of committees, and maybe, I don't think we're quite prepared to do it tonight, and then just kind of spend, maybe it's at the goals discussion meeting on the 16th or whatever it is, right? That we kind of go through liaison assignments, and we acknowledge that the role of a liaison is to at least reach out to the chairs of those committees, identify themselves as a point of contact, make it an effort as much as is feasible to attend meetings as your schedule sees fit.
Make contact.
All that good stuff, right? And then again, individually, if we have interest in going to other extra meetings for boards we're not liaisons with, that's fine too. It's all good. And I think that's, and then the final suggestion of inviting those board chairs in, if they'd like to present their their goals and needs to the selectmen. But I think to both David and Jason's point, that's good, that's nice, but we also have to, as much as we can as individuals, go the other way.
All right, my caution is timeliness, because shortly after mid-August, the time clock for town meeting will be kicking in, and if there is a need for coordination,
Yeah.
it would be good to make sure that happens.
If you're ready to go through the list.
Well, I was going to suggest that everybody later this week pick 2 or 3 of their preferred and send them to me, and if it all works out really well, then we'll do this at our next regular meeting, and if it doesn't quite work out perfectly, then we'll do it at the special meeting on the 14th.
And I'm presuming that since charter is pretty much done, I can't count that as one of my ones.
No, you don't get credit for that, sorry.
I just figured I'd try.
Mr. Chair, if I could just point out in the Dropbox folder, it's listed as the goals, I think, the item number 5, for the most part, is an exhaustive list, minus a couple committees that just no longer are operating.
Yes.
The building committee specifically.
And it reminds me that I
Capital plan.
failed to communicate with the library board of trustees during the year. But, yeah, so unfortunately, we're down a member again, so that's gonna constrain us. But like I said, if you can pick out 2 or 3 of your preferences and, let me know, we'll give an update on this at our next, regular meeting. Okay. Item 13 is ratification of collective bargaining agreements, and it's back to Kevin for this one.
Yes.
Oh, it might be to Andrew.
You can speak to it if you want. Just real briefly, before you this evening, we're proposing the ratification of the CBA for the police. We're anticipating completion. We have MOAs, as you know, with Lyuna Group, which is the DPW laborers and the department heads, but those contracts aren't ready to be signed yet due to more of a clerical end of things, getting it organized. But before you this evening is the police. I'll turn it over to Andrew to speak to it.
So you've had the contract available to you for review, and tonight we have a signed copy from the police department for you to sign. And I can answer any questions about the structural changes that were listed in the Dropbox at any time.
Can you just give us the big 3 or 4 highlights?
Big 3 or 4 highlights. Excuse me. Most of the contract has been rewritten in a more clear, grammatically correct sense. That's a big win, specifically because when things aren't clear, it winds up costing folks a lot of time figuring out what it really means. So we spent most of the spring figuring out what it really meant and getting the language down. There was some give and take with the police contract on what it meant to be a police officer and what that was worth to the community. And so, for instance, officers in training aren't fully fledged officers, and how are they going to be compensated, and are they actually in this contract? So again, we clarified a lot of that information about the difference between a town employee and a sworn police officer. Ultimately, we got to a number of changes, mostly involving how much we were going to compensate them. And you'll find that the contract has cost of living increases of 1.5%, 2%, and 2.5% over the next 3 years. So in the first year, it's the 1.5%, which is excellent for the town in terms of its keeping its fiscal house in order for the near term. The entire contract, I think, does that. I think our officers are paid reasonably fairly for the region and the work they do.
Okay.
Andrew, I got a quick question, if I may, Bill.
Sure.
Based on your
There's a big win I haven't gotten to yet, but go ahead.
That's okay. But
all right.
I'll go right ahead. Give me the win before I.
Well, the biggest difficulty in the contract was once we started negotiations, we had told the officers that we were exploring removing the town from civil service, and they wanted it to be a bargainable issue, and we said, well, it's not a bargainable issue because we don't control whether or not the town says yes or no to it. So what is bargainable is the impact of that decision. As you know, the town voted to remove the police department from civil service in May, and so now we still had time on the contract to work out the impact of that. And what we showed the officers along the way was that the impact, in many cases, landed in their favor. It improved the ability for them to be hired and promoted and to work within the existing norms of hiring and personnel practices in the 21st century that didn't exist when civil service came into being 100 years ago. And they signed on to that. They agreed wholeheartedly with our assessment of this is removing from civil service was to the police officer's advantage as much as it was something the town desired. So with that in mind, we did not have to pay a large sort of payment to get them to buy into it. They understood it was to their advantage, and that was essentially payment enough. So it was a modest part of the negotiations instead of a giant part of it.
My question or comment was really, in my company we have a phrase, they talk about autopsy without blame. When something happens, you review it and you analyze it, and you know, not pointing fingers at anybody. But coming from your background, which dealt with police and you know, I assume you had some involvement with their contract to a degree. Where does Maynard fall in our contracts? And these things go back historically. They're not something that just we can't point a finger, and that's not the intent. But where does Maynard's contracts fall in comparison to the others that you've seen, as far as its generosity, as far as its you know, its flexibility and its value to the employee versus the town and everything else? And do we have some cleaning up to do?
I think we've done a lot of the cleaning up. Kevin and I took on 4 contracts this spring, and 3 of them are all but done, and one of them is almost there. The largest thing we've done is clean them up. There are all sorts of incomplete sentences and phrases that were sort of notations from previous contracts that shouldn't have been left in there, just building confusion upon confusion. And in many cases, just talking it out with the union representatives, they agreed, hey, we got to fix this. So it wasn't a battle. It was, hey, let's get this to a nice, clean place. But to answer your question, other contracts I've dealt with had their own comparable issues. And in some cases, either unions or management preferred that lack of clarity and that confusion. And so, and sometimes it's intentional. The obfuscation, if you will. So I don't think Maynard's is any better or worse in that sense. Personally, I think it's much better now that we've cleaned them up, because that's how I prefer them. But there is another side to it that some people prefer. In terms of how far we have to go, I think there's a lot of things that the Selectmen and Kevin and I would like to promote in future negotiations and say we'd like to move the contracts in this direction. But you can't do them all at once, right? So you set things out and you see if you can move in a certain direction. They're not horrible. They're not they're not overly generous. They're not overly underpaid employees. They're in a good place. Comparing them on a salary basis with other towns is very difficult, particularly with police and fire contracts, because there are so many sort of folded into themselves benefits because of the nature of their work, the 24-hour-a-day scheduling. So they're kind of a different animal. And other towns, other communities provide different benefits as a result of that. You have to really peel them back and say, are these things apples to apples? A quick example, town I left had holiday pay added into the base pay for police officers. If you look at their base pay for officers compared to Maynard's, you'd say, wow, that town pays an awful lot more. But if you look at Maynard's base pay and then realize they add in holiday pay on top of that, it's a much more level playing field between the two communities. So you can't just look at a number and make an assumption. You gotta look at all those details.
Thanks.
They're fairly paid.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
In my opinion.
Brendan?
No, I'm not sure I have any substantive comments. I'm appreciative of the fact that you've been able to clean up the contracts, and having dealt with renewal of collective bargaining several times now, I know that some of the things are just amazing that they were there to begin with. So I'm glad that it's moving in a positive direction, and that it's been a concerted effort on all parties' parts to get to a better, more intelligible agreement. Like to David's question of comparing it, I appreciate that total compensation is virtually impossible to calculate based on the fact that there's so many nuances to the various benefits that, you know, you can quantify salary, that's great, but, you know, all the other benefits and, you know, I mean, people must do the comparison. I just appreciate the fact that the comparison's very hard to do because of the way agreements are written. And somewhat unique across each municipality has the history of, they've had this benefit for 15 years, well, this other municipality has never heard of that benefit and all the permutations thereof, so. Thank you.
If you will, there's two more things on the, well, one thing on the police contract and one thing sort of to your point. I'll take that one first. One of our contracts said that the members of this union will receive sick time equal to that of the other unions in town. And each of our unions receive different number of hours of sick time. So there was really no place to go with that one. We had to fix that. But that's that kind of obfuscation that it was probably intended to, like, when somebody else gets a benefit, we get it too. But over the years, it just got sort of messed up. So we did get the sick leave buyback benefit out of the police contract. And it's a grandfathered clause, so it's for new employees. But typical employees are leaving the police service with 5-figure payments simply for sick leave accumulated. And so I think that's a big one. We won't see the benefits
Is
immediately.
that only for future employees?
Future employees. So you don't see the benefit immediately, but it really starts to add up when you look at the math and the 20 people times 5-figure costs. It's
a pretty substantial unfunded liability one would offer.
exactly. So it won't go away immediately, but it will go away. So.
All right, Jason, any thoughts or comments?
No, Bill, thank you. Do we have any, I'm sorry, is this just one agreement tonight we're asking to approve?
Yeah, the LiUNA union insisted on rewriting their contracts. The police department and I sat down and took on our own. So then I called them. We met in early July and we were all settled and ready to go. And I called them about a week ago and they said, "Oh, we're not going to have that ready for the 22nd." So, although when we had sat down, they were clear that we had hoped to do it tonight. So, but
May I ask, did the chief sit with you guys on the negotiating team?
he did.
Good.
All right, well, I'm happy just to do one of them and get that out of the way, so.
We do expect to have the other two on the 5th of August. I still don't think we'll have the clerical union ready until later in the month.
Very good.
Ready to sign? I have a copy for you.
Well, I'll make a motion to ratify and approve the collective bargaining agreement negotiated between the town and New England Police Benevolent Associations, Locals 54 and 55, for the period from July 1, 2014 to June 30, 2017.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion from the board? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. And it's signature time. How many signatures?
Just one per person.
Just one copy?
We're going to make, the original will be filed with the town clerk, and then everybody else will receive autocopies.
Do you want the date?
Please.
The date being the 22nd.
No. Thanks.
Trying to make everything electronic these days.
Save a tree, right? It's all good. It's all good. We don't have to wait till the flood to lose it. Wait for the power outage. What backup is?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Now, the next topic is entitled the 129 Parker Street update, but I like to think of it as our topic of economic development. I want to just lead off saying it's good to see somebody in the Samuel studio space.
Yes.
Drive by that a couple times a day. Nice
Yeah,
to see that occupied.
they've done a nice job there. What stands out is, obviously, is the parking for that establishment, but my understanding is they're trying to work out arrangements with other businesses in the area.
They have.
Yeah. So.
Very
I
good.
hope, wish them success, and it's certainly, it's great to see that corner cleaned up, and they're doing well. There's other gateway corners and areas that we're all well aware of that are high on our list to focus on next, so.
All right, and I understand we have 2 updates.
Yeah,
on 129 Parker Street, one of which we referenced a little earlier, but.
So, yeah, Mr. Tommel actually made reference to the notice that was received today, CC'd to myself, but addressed to our town planner, Bill Nemser, and from the 129 Parker Street project's attorney, Angelo Catanzaro, stating that they're providing notice of withdrawal of the application for a definitive subdivision approval, and they're essentially leaving it at that, so that they'll not appear at the continued public hearing scheduled for July 29th.
Is it fair to say that that is somewhat related to, I don't know, technical difficulties in the application process itself?
It's very fair to say that.
Okay.
Yes.
Technical difficulties that they failed on their
Yeah,
application?
so just to kind of back up, myself, Andrew, and Bill Nemser, as well as our special counsel, John Witten, met with the Bob and Bill DePietri, representatives of 129 Parker Street, Capital Group Properties, as well as their attorney, Angelo, to kind of discuss, have a conversation as a group and see where like minds are at, and see where they're looking to move forward with the project. Attorney Witten is, in my opinion, and from several others that I've heard from, was an excellent selection for the project. He knows his stuff and is going to serve this project well. He's pointed out at the last hearing flaws that were made in the filing, and continued to point out issues along the way. So I think it became clear at that meeting that in their mind that due to that, and more so dealing with time and submittal requirements, that they were going to withdraw, and they did make that decision by this notice. But also, which is the other communication that was addressed to me, which is with regards to the 40B comprehensive permit. In that meeting, there was discussion about them still having interest in meeting with the board, a couple of the members of the board, to discuss the housing and the residential component of the project, and to see where, if we can come to an agreement, whether it's an agreement outside of the 40B application. And of course, part of this discussion with Attorney Witten and with the group is, is the timeliness with getting an actual decision or notice from housing, but from the state with regards to their 40B submittal application. And so we don't anticipate getting anything for at least 45 to 60 days, but in their letter, they're just following up, requesting that, and I'm hoping that if the board is still interested, that we might be able to assign 2 individuals from the board that's willing to meet in this group, this subgroup, the week of August 4th.
Yeah, it was good, because we had asked them that we had made clear that we were open for that meeting before, and it's my suggestion to the board that Brendan and I join Kevin in that meeting, if that's okay with you guys, and Brendan.
No, that's fine. I just offered to you that it would need to be posted.
Why?
Because if this board authorized these, even in a formal sense, the formation of a subcommittee, it's my best understanding that it's subject to the open meeting laws. If I'm wrong, that's fine. I got no problem with that. I'm just saying that's my understanding of the revised open meeting laws.
Well, we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, council can provide advice, just what it is.
We'll get further advice on it. Again, we had this discussion with Attorney Witten, and had brought that, I believe we actually mentioned the specific of the dynamic of having two selectmen, and he is also a town council. But we certainly will find out, cover their bases there.
And regardless, the conversation is coming back to the full board.
Yeah.
Later anyway,
Right.
so
Yeah.
one way or another, it's.
And I guess my only expression is
Cool thing.
I prefer the evenings. So you said the week of the 4th, I'm pretty open the week of the 4th, but I'd accept Monday, and I'd prefer evenings if possible. But that would need to be scheduled with everyone's availability, obviously. So there can be an email dialogue and scheduling meetings.
Correct.
Yeah, my availability is consistent with that too.
Yeah, just based on some of that, I don't know what the planning board schedule, Bill was, is going to be present, and not knowing what Attorney Witten's evening commitments are with several other boards, we'll make it happen for that week and try to avoid.
All right, and
Monday.
I have a little more flexibility, I think, than
Okay.
Brendan does that week.
I mean, I can consider earlier in the day, but, you know, I would need a lot more notice. Probably need more knowledge too, but that's another point. Need some notice to facilitate that with my work schedule.
Fair enough. So that's the latest updates at this point. The planning board is aware of this recent notice, and they still will have a meeting on the 29th. They do have other business, but that hearing itself, they'll have to meet to accept the withdrawal. And
Will they still be able to put notice of the withdrawal so people don't show up unnecessarily?
yes, I think that's already updated.
Okay.
I'll follow up on that, but I did speak with Bill. Bill's Nemz's managing that project site. I did speak with him. I'm almost positive he's got all that up there today, and we'll get that notice out. Also, if we can, I just want to have a brief discussion, because it's tied to that project or that property, and get some direction from the board as follow-up to the notice of the appeal from the ABCC, and that'll get direction from you whether or not you would like town council to file with opposition to their appeal, or if we leave it as is.
Do we know the logistics of response times and things?
I know the logistics. I know of their appeal is 5 days. I don't know. No, I don't know. I'll have to get that from Lisa. How much time we have to respond? She did reach out again today, so it's probably we have to make a decision, now. But
Before our next meeting?
Yes. Yeah.
And what's your suggestion? You're asking at this moment just whether our council will submit a counter letter?
Yeah, exactly.
Or a little more explanatory, because there were a couple points in their letter that
Erroneous.
was not exactly to my recollection.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
I believe whenever the town is given an opportunity to defend itself or to speak on its behalf, it should do so. And failure to do so would be, not living up to our requirements to the voters and to the residents of Maynard. So I believe that we should answer.
Yep.
and
Of course,
the-
their appeal, is gonna somewhat be, subjective on their end, but.
yeah, and the action at hand is simply a letter of response, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
How
I'm-
do these
I'm good
how-
with
It may trigger appearance at the hearing as well, but.
That's my question. How do the
council.
hearings work? I assume they're informal,
They're publicly
they don't even
advert-
follow the rules of the courtroom, really. It's just really just a semi-casual
similar
meeting.
hearings that we have, a hearing of the commission.
Is there a likelihood that that would happen before our next meeting?
No. We already have the schedule all the way out through August. We're not on it. The hearing itself, yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
So I suggest we answer because I think that's our due diligence.
Brendan, Jason?
I don't have any comment.
Jason, any thought you want to have council do a response to their response?
I would honestly, in this case, being somewhat unfamiliar with this process, I would refer to town council as to whether they feel that this appeal needs to be responded to. I did briefly review it and see that much of it is, for lack of a better term, standard lawyer speak to, I'd say looks very familiar to many of the appeals I've seen in my previous experience. If it is customary to respond to an appeal of this type, then I would have no issue with making that response.
All right, so Kevin, let's have council do her response, and as far as further action, we'll take that up at our next meeting.
Fair enough.
All right, I guess you're kind of cheating on the town administrator report with that one, or you got something new for us?
Yeah, no, I got some other stuff. First off, if you could indulge me just for a quick second, I just want to publicly, and for the record, thank Dawn for her time. I've had an opportunity to work with Dawn for 5 years now, since I've been employed with the town, and certainly more recently in the last 16 months in my role as the acting and as the town administrator. And I know deep down she has a passion for the work that she was doing with the town, and you know, I think just want to again publicly thank her. It's been a pleasure working with her, and you know, certainly is disappointing to hear. So if I could, let me start off. I just want to let the board know I'm working with the finance team, working on getting our year-end closeout stuff together. The town accountant, Mike Guzzo, him and I have met several times, which is good. In the last couple of years, we've focused on doing our year-end closeouts and Schedule A and free cash much sooner than historically. If the board recalls our 13 certified free cash, we got much sooner. We will probably be on the same schedule for this year. Things are looking positive with regards to that. Things are looking good with the closeout, and we'll be in good shape with some transfers and closing out the year well. So no issues as of yet with the FY15 budget. There's some obvious ones that as we work through these contract increases and some other shortfalls that we'll have to discuss, but plugging away in fiscal year 15. Want to let the board know about a project that's been on my mind now for a year and a half, and has gotten just kind of now had the time to focus on that, and that's working with a consultant with regards to a record management system, and really a focus on improving the record management of the town, which is in dire need. It's something that's
You're
probably...
going to steal one of my goals and objectives if you talk about this. Okay, go ahead.
He was looking at your list.
So, yeah,
you're talking entire town, not just certain departments.
Yeah, well, we really the real focus is the ultimate keeper of records, which is the town clerk's office, and as well as other departments. We're really looking to make that become a true town clerk's office with a true, with them being the true keeper of the record. By doing that, it's a major project with getting the vault squared away, which is we can talk about that. We can take a tour.
Can we make that an agenda item?
But the you know, the vault, the mailroom, getting that all squared away, as well as other departments, and really trying to improve and efficient and create a catalog system that's a database catalog system where a record could be, the true record can be kept and searched and easily searched and found. So I'm excited about this. It's something that the town is absolutely behind on. And you know, Andrew and I met with a representative from King Information Systems.
Should be done electronically too, the electronic records, or do we have to start even before that with paper records?
Yeah, exactly. We're at this point, you know, we're not talking about scanning and everything, but really what it is getting rid of several duplicative 2, 3, 4, 5 copies of things, and looking at the retention records, what stuff we actually do need to keep, what we don't need to keep. And it's really, as Andrew and I, in our leadership team meetings with our department heads, have been having the discussion for the last several months of pushing them, anticipating this rolling out soon, pushing them into what we've termed as a decrapification, if you will, for lack of better words, but really encouraging them to focus on starting now, going through stuff. We've actually filled up, a decent amount, a good bay of the police department garage where it'll actually be shredded by Harvey. And doing some of this stuff prior to this, we're anticipating them hopefully doing their assessment piece probably early September, and then we'll move on beyond that. But it is exciting. It's something that that we do need to take seriously, and it hasn't been. It's long overdue. So I just want to let the board. I'll update the board on that project as we go along, and it's a good thing.
Well, let me just say that in my early FinCom days, we actually met in the vault, so I have a special appreciation for your effort.
And didn't the vault at one time, wasn't the vault where the Board of Selectmen met? Wasn't that the...
I've met in the
you would
vault
know.
before.
Yeah.
Well, we could certainly limit the number of us at this point. Couldn't have a quorum if we meet in this vault now. So, but it will be.
But Vic would be complaining about seating if we
and just to be fair,
I think Andrew's office was once the Board of Selectmen's chambers, literally.
it was, yeah. Just to be clear, if you look at the vault now, comparative to 6 months ago, when we started this process, the employees have really made great headway. So we have done a lot of good effort up to this point, and it's just so much to tackle, in the professionalism of cataloging it, and that's really what's exciting. So,
Any estimate on what that costs?
Not
that I disagree that it needs to be done.
Yeah, it's tough to say. That'll be coming out of the assessment piece, but the money has been earmarked for the professional services. It's probably in the range, all said and done,
it's all
15
budgeted
to
for
20,000.
anyway.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah, as a project. Part of this assessment will determine, what the real need is, and then whether or not it's likely going to be something that will fall under 30B procurement limits. So we may have to just get quotes, but we don't know the exact cost yet. The other thing is the Mass DOT, the Winter Rapid Recovery Road Program, of which the town was awarded that $37,519 for pothole repairs. The scope of work was submitted and approved DOT, and they'll be working on sections of Old Marlborough Road, Great Road, and Main Street, starting this Thursday, the 24th. Scope of the work will include excavation by the cold planer, milling, tack coat, sheen pave.
You're on top of this.
Yeah, so that's the pothole grant state money that was awarded. The facilities manager and myself had a kickoff meeting, met with NSTAR Energy folks to discuss the project of the $102,101 and some change grant that was awarded by the Mass DOER, the Green Communities Division. I think the board has seen the press release on that. That was a competitive grant for a bunch of projects, but we had a kickoff meeting with the utility company, because not only with that grant to get the projects done, there's utility incentives, which we've been able to once we're done, we'll be able to capture over $28,000 in utility incentives that we'll get back from NSTAR. So it's a bigger nut than just the grant itself, and the utility incentives and the projected savings is big. So it's a nice project. Several projects, several little projects that add up. So all good things. And last thing else I wanted to mention is the public information rollout, sort of, if you will, campaign. Been working on getting, looking to probably go live with on this Friday, which the board will board will see a much more active public outreach through a dedicated town administrator's website, as well as a official Town of Maynard a Facebook account and Twitter account, which will be tied into the blog, which will hopefully will will capture and be able to communicate specifically communicate much more efficiently and with the times, if you will.
Who will
public,
be updating the Facebook page?
It's the Facebook account is updated automatically through the blog piece of mine. It's through a direct feed.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it'll be my office.
Okay.
And that'll be the official town Facebook. The police department and the fire department both have Facebook accounts,
Yep.
which I'm sure you're aware. But the social media aspect is huge. But
Yep.
also the dedicated town administrator page where we can blog, and we're looking at probably trying to do a more formal, where you can sign up and do a more formal town administrator's office newsletter, where we can capture things on a monthly basis. Even some of it may be stale information, but it's sort of all in one place type of a newsletter, and the site will allow for anybody to sign up, and then monthly hopefully probably starting September 1, a newsletter will get sent out to everybody automatically. It will capture some stuff.
Very good.
Yeah, so more to come on that. That's it. Am I missing anything, Andrew? That was it? Good.
All right. For the chairman's report, I got a few things. So our meeting about goals and objectives for the year is confirmed for the August 14th. The suggestion was that we start at least as early as 6:30. I don't have a problem with that. Is that okay with the rest of the board?
That's fine.
That's fine.
All right, 6:30 it is, August 14th.
Pizza?
Did
Pizza?
Do we have a
identify
location yet?
Location?
I would prefer Council on Aging in the Clock Tower Place,
Okay.
just so we can keep that issue at the forefront.
We might not want to eat in there at the same time.
But yeah, I'll take care of food and beverage.
So,
Yeah,
COA, 6:30 on the 14th.
correct.
Okay.
I did some follow-up on the suggested changes to the liquor license laws that we discussed at last meeting, and there was questions about Section 18, which had the guidance about
Penalties.
levels of penalties, and the question was if they were recommending to take out the penalty guidance, did the following paragraphs that talked about guidance, were they still relevant? And I was able to confirm that they intend to actually suggest deleting the following paragraph. So, long story short, we should have a new, revised, succinct version ready for our consideration next meeting.
You're rewriting that?
No, they are. I mean, they're just basically deleting 2 more paragraphs from the thing we've seen.
So again, I don't want to be repetitive, but on my last time we discussed this, I had, I don't know if it's a cautionary note is a bit strong, but some sense of that even though the penalties themselves are completely subjective relative to the guideline, relative to the regulations, and I get that. Some level of guidance to future boards, there's wisdom in that. Like, for instance, when the only corollary I can draw off the top of my head when, we've considered like special permit review criteria for special permits in the zoning bylaw. Granted, that's not this board, but you know what I mean.
Right, and I brought up that question specifically to council, and his response was that it's in the town's best interest to not specify the guidelines, because that provides the town with, quote, the broadest range of discretion. And he pointed out that regardless of having guidelines, the town is almost certainly subject to due process claims about those guidelines and how well they were followed. And so council's recommendation is less is better.
That gets back to Jason's earlier comment about lawyer speak, because that's.
Right, and it'll have less lawyer
Lawyers will
speak
say.
and, less need for, after decisions to have 4 pages of legalese about why it's consistent with the guidance and things like that.
No, I get it. And I'm not gonna force the point.
But if I'm misstating what your thoughts were, though, Brendan, last time we had that discussion, I think there is value in knowing what happened. Say you have an incident at a particular establishment, and knowing what happened in the past is valuable. Knowing what the penalties have been.
Well, that's subtly different than. So the problem is you can't capture that in the regulations, and I get that. Now, as far as what's happened in the past, this is where it comes to a bit of a discussion, because I think that sometimes there's an inherent amount of uniqueness to every incident. There is an inherent amount of sameness, right? Okay, you're not tip certified, or whatever the violation is. Right? You can probably come up, thank you, with an example of, this is how you've done with it before, but I don't have a good solution, because, so I think knowing the history of a particular property, like if Crenshaw Liquors Inc. comes in for a violation, hypothetical situation, right?
Totally.
Then, understanding what's come before for this particular property is fine, but it's really hard to draw a comparison to what happened at Creole Liquor Inc. because, he's in a different location, the nature of the violation. There's not a lot of statistical data that one can practically gather because of the uniqueness. So I just reiterate the quandary. I don't apparently provide a solution in this case.
I think as simple as, and I'm really simplifying it, but you have an underage serving an underage individual, and we get provided with documentation that said the last 5 times that the Board of Selectmen has dealt with serving an underage individual, this has been the penalty.
I don't think that that's unreasonable. I'm just so I get the sentiment. The question is, depending on how the data is stored, I'm not asking for staff to go through 3 hours of research to gather that data.
Maybe Kevin's
comment
about record keeping could address that. But no, I wouldn't want that either. It's just I don't know how much digging has to go into it. Pretty easy.
All right, so this sounds like it's going to take a little longer at the next meeting than I thought.
No, you know something? I don't think it is.
Okay.
I think the even though apparently I'm causing a little bit of trouble here, I think that the regulations themselves can be ratified per your suggestions, and then I think that even informally, if we just make it an inherent policy that when the board considers violations, if the staff can gather data about similar violations just for something.
Yeah, that's really, I think
that's not a
future
regulation.
boards need guidance, and, if you have no clue as to what the previous boards have done, it becomes difficult.
Very good. Next item is just a reminder to the board members that the Community Preservation Committee is in their current application solicitation timeline, and so if you have any thoughts of ideas that the board might want to sponsor, please bring that to the next meeting.
Preliminary applications due by?
The preliminary application, I think, if I remember correctly, was early September, with the final, Andrew sent me the list earlier this week, with the final things all in November, but
November 14th, the applications are due.
But the preliminary is like September sometime, and that's.
Yeah, I want to say the 19th, but
It's posted on the website also.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that, if we have any projects we want to present to them, I just hope that if we do, we present them well and timely and successfully.
Yeah, so I would, given the anticipated submittal requirements, maybe it's, what's the next meeting? The next meeting is the first meeting in August, right?
5th.
Yeah,
I'm thinking the ideas at least get presented that, and whether we,
Yeah, that's fine.
drill down on those ideas at the following meeting is another matter, but just like to hear if there are some ideas, or if there's one idea or a million ideas. So, put your thinking caps on and bring those ideas to the next meeting.
What's that?
I would. Posted on our Dropbox is the list of capital plan items, and, it's still a bit of a work in progress. I just asked that it be posted so that if you have any comments about things that you think were missed and you want to throw into the mix, send those thoughts to Andrew.
Has that or can that be shared with FinCom, especially with the chair, so he can share it with his team?
I don't mind that any of this information gets shared. I don't consider it particularly confidential. I would stress, though, that it is a work in progress. Even this afternoon, I was meeting with Chris Okafor at DPW about some of the costs on some of the items in his area. So it changes almost daily when members of the committee send information through or receive a quote, and they say, here's a good number for that item. And then we meet about once a week to look at the prioritization and those types of things as well. Talk about those things as a group.
To that point, Mr. Chair, I think our hope, and I've had that discussion with the chair of the Finance Committee, is to be able to keep them in the loop, but present to them some of this capital projects and some of the planning activities and the process, if you will, that we've gone through at a Finance Committee meeting, probably towards the end of August.
Yeah, and my thought is simply that to make sure that the collective need of capital items be fully identified, and the prioritization through your group of next steps in the next 5 years. But
sure,
even if it's a 10-year out thing, it would be nice to have it on the list so we don't forget it in the future, which we have done once or twice.
And get it off the list if it's been done.
Yes, that's a good thing too. Yes.
If you look at it today, you may see some things and you think, oh, something's missing or whatever. There's a number of projects that were approved at town meeting or through the water and sewer enterprise funds and so on that are straddling fiscal years. And so those projects haven't been added to the list yet. These are sort of waiting for an update. If it's completely done this year, just take it off the list, or if it's something that's going to go through 15 or into 16, we're going to put it back on there, perhaps with more accurate figures. But those are the only things that I'm aware of that are missing, at least in terms of what the group has brought to the table.
Okay.
And those will be on there in a few days.
All right, so I'll reiterate, if you find a missing or one that shouldn't be on there anymore, please send those thoughts to Andrew. Let's see here.
Mr. Chair, there's also a draft meeting notices. I don't know if that's something that the board wants to take up tonight to approve. There's a list for the entire fiscal year of proposed meeting dates.
Yeah, that looked like it came in a little late.
Yeah, we can.
We'll figure that out, because we also have an election discussion to
agenda
have
item
too.
for.
But, yeah, I
We
mean.
can add that to the 5th.
Yeah, no, it should be fine. Just a, let's see here, for updates, we do need to talk about election and now that we have a resignation, and also we had the discussion from last meeting about the charter thing, but I'd like to hold that off till we go through the whole, around the horn here. Just one last general comment from me in that I noticed the legislature is considering changing the liquor laws to allow Sunday morning openings of package stores, and my hope that if that passes, and before we decide whether to allow that or not, we actually ask the owners whether that's what they wish. Because as I understand it, it's not something that creates more revenue for them. It just spreads it out to more hours. So that's not always in the best interest of the owner-operators of the smaller stores. But it remains to be seen whether that gets passed or not.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's go for new old business and let's jump over to Jason.
I have nothing new.
Anything old?
No, sir.
Not that he wants to speak up publicly.
Ah, okay. Brendan.
I guess my only comment is, as the board considers the timing of a calling of a special election, we consider including the charter, just because we did get confirmation that we can't consider the charter at the upcoming state election on November or something or other.
All right, you're jumping on my topic. You got anything else?
You asked me first.
I know, but I explained that we were going to talk about that last.
All right.
Because it's semi-complex.
It's charter.
It is.
I said charter. I'm done now.
Okay, excellent. But we'll let you lead this. All right. David.
My only comment, it has to do with the garage downtown. I think that it's made a lot of progress. You know, now that they're putting up the sidewalls and the structure that went around the old steps, I think it looks pretty good. So thank you for those who are working on it and continuing to keep an eye on it. What is the plan for the safety of the drop?
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a good point. If you could give it time, and the end result, I'm confident will look very nice. Just to the side of that, we've heard great feedback from the businesses that are down in that area, particularly with the deck gone. They're actually saying that they've actually seen an inflow of what seems to be some businesses because they can actually be seen now.
Yep.
You know, just by taking the deck down, it's really opened them up and it's visible from Summer Street. And so we've heard some good positive stuff from them down there. What will end up happening is the wall actually is going to have a fence that's constructed directly on top. There's a cap. There's a fence that'll go on that'll provide a barrier from that wall. And then we're working with ArtSpace to solicit some proposals from interested artists to present to the board on some proposals of themes to actually paint murals on the white.
Still make it one of those 3D things, so if people drive in thinking they're going into a tunnel.
The white canvas side. What's not going to happen is I'm not going to pick what the mural is, so I don't want to be selecting artwork.
I think the best thing would be to turn it over to the Cultural Council or something.
Yeah, whatever the board decides, you know, but we have put it out there with those folks, and there's some interest in it. So I think it's gonna really tie in nice if we go to the cultural district and that type of thing.
Yep.
The wall itself we're waiting on a final cap on that retaining piece, and then there'll be fencing there as well because of the height. It has to be at least a 42-inch by code. It has to be a 42-inch drop retainer fence, something of that nature. So that'll match the top one, and it'll look really nice. And expanding Memorial Park, we've been able to add we'll be able to add 2 additional parking spaces directly on Nason Street, where the ramp goes up. So they've actually added in curbing. They'll be doing the cement work, and then they'll be able to add stripe for 2 more spaces right there on Nason Street, with plenty back far enough from the driveway out for visibility reasons. So we'll gain 2 there, and then I just think the improvement to Memorial Park, the expansion of Memorial Park, beyond the project where the old pressure-treated railroad tie barriers, it just really was in tough shape, the slant, everything. So we've really tried to improve the grade and be able to use the park a little more beneficial. As far as the house piece, I've heard comments on that, and I myself had questioned that more than once. Just so everybody understands why that was left that way. It wasn't a case of wanting to save the electric charging stations or anything like that. We were going to put those on poles. It had to do with recommendations from the electrician and the wiring inspector based on if the stairway, which it doesn't exist anymore, it's just an opening to get from the lot to the sidewalk. So there's a few steps, and then right there, the stairway going up is all enclosed. You'd never know it existed. The reality behind it is that it's all of the electrical components for that entire downtown area, the parking lot, where Abushan, Babiko's, it's all tied into that. There's the panels, some of which they don't even know the extent of. And the problem with taking that off, and what I want to do is take it out, put it into some sort of external case, which is typical. You'd have an external electrical box, if you will. But if we had done anything with that, we would have had to dig it all the way back out to the street and redo all of the underground utility and it was going to open up Pandora's box. So we said, how do we aesthetically clean it up and make it functional? And I think at the end of the project, it'll look nice.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. My own personal opinion. It would be nice to get a cupola of some type on top of that little house, so it has some sort of a,
We tried to make it not stand out. It's good. It blends in if you're facing towards the Summer Street lot from the wall. It really blends in with Abushan and matches in the best we can with kind of some of the decor and exterior of what they have, as opposed to something totally off color.
Yeah. So I think it's good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right. Back to the thoughts about election and Brendan's point about we can't have the charter election on the state election day. And with the resignation, does anybody happen to understand the timeline for
No sooner than 45 days.
45?
Can't call for it more than,
No sooner than 45
45
days.
45 days.
So what I would recommend for the board's benefit, I mean, obviously we want to act in a timely fashion, but I want to make sure we pick a date that works. So I would ask that we have the town clerk / town council provide us a recommended date that meets both the election requirements for the election of a new selectman, as well as any remaining timing issues associated with the charter, and provide us a recommendation for an election date for our next meeting, so we can take.
Yeah, and it only makes sense to have both of those elections on the same day.
Well,
certainly.
I mean, I'd like to get the charter out of the way, if you will. I'd prefer not to have to wait until till May, right, for the ratification.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I'm with you, fine. And, as long as we can get it done by our next meeting, because, I mean, we are, with the loss of a member, it makes a big difference. So as soon as that position can get filled, the better for the town.
No, absolutely. I just want to, I don't know enough now to say that you can do the charter on that day. There may be some lingering review thingies with the state.
Agreed.
Okay, do we have anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Before 9 o'clock, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.